Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to continue on with this week's theme of unusual song structure, looking at songs that don't follow a typical verse-chorus pattern. Today we're going to be looking at the band Hypno5e. The track is Acid Mist Tomorrow off of the album with the same title. For some reason, because there's a 5 in the name, Hypno5e, where the S at the end is a 5, I think it's electronic, but I honestly don't see many people from the community suggesting electronic music, so I'm real curious to see what this ends up being. Let's dive into this. We got Acid Mist Tomorrow. Ooh! I love that. So the first bar, they always consistently hit on the downbeat. The second bar, they have a couple different ways to play around with it. I really love the mix of all of this. We've had two different sets of like an electronic texture, but then we've also had a really nice 50-50 of electric guitar and clean guitar. Alright, some clean vocals to contrast our harshes in the last section. Oh, yeah, it sounded like we were getting back into it heavy, and instead we cut that energy short. Oh, we're getting back to this rhythmic idea from our opening, but we're pairing it with the vocal rhythm. Oh, it's so good. Felt that coming on. Ooh. Really interesting bass kick tone. All right.
Il m'a regardé un moment en silence, il avait les yeux pleins de larmes. Il s'est détourné et il a disparu. Lui parti, j'ai retrouvé le calme.
Yeah, just really great transitions between ideas, even start contrasting ideas. Interesting to pair the clean guitars with such a meaty bass.
J'ai senti que j'avais été heureux et que je l'étais encore. À ce moment, et à la limite de la nuit, des sirènes ont hurlé. Elles annonçaient des départs pour un monde qui maintenant m'était à jamais indifférent.
Yeah.
Et à la limite de la nuit, des sirènes ont hurlé. Elles annonçaient des départs pour un monde qui maintenant m'était à jamais indifférent.
This is so good.
Pour que tout soit consommé, pour que je me sente moins seul, il me restait à souhaiter qu'il y ait beaucoup de spectateurs le jour de mon exécution et qu'ils m'accueillent avec des cris de haine.
At half beat stop. Okay. Playing around with this idea rhythmically, throwing a variation on it. Oh, what? So we actually took the chord progression from the Spanish guitar bit and moved it with the rhythm we just had from the screeches. Ah, such a good callback. And now we have the constant attacks on the guitars. There's a very prominent symbol up on the left side.
Si j'étais un homme, sans doute que se coucher par terre et mourir.
All right. Whoops, that's weird. All right, YouTube, you're drunk. Go home. Yeah, phenomenal stuff. It's interesting. It's so rare that I find metal that is up my alley. I have such a very narrow type of metal that I enjoy that as much as I like listening to all this stuff you guys present to me, and I get to see all the different ways that metal is kind of expanding in a lot of different ways, but also just music as a whole gets its boundaries pushed. There's not a lot that I typically hold off, put off to the side and say, this is something I need to check out later on my own time. And this week has produced two of those. We had Summoning the Lich yesterday, which blew my mind, and now Hypnos. This is good stuff. This is good stuff. I'm so excited to dig into this. The first thing I want to touch on, though, what I think is most important to me at least, is the fluidity of everything. It is kind of bonkers just how much of this works together in a moment by moment concept. It's difficult for me to really say that we moved through a lot of sections. Everything flowed so perfectly into each other that there were, I don't know, maybe only 2 or 3 moments where I was like, okay, this is a major shift. We're moving from an A to a B section here. Even though we might have had, changes throughout, they all felt connected and intermingled. I think if you really got into the nitty gritty of this, there's probably about 6 to 7, maybe 8 sections in here. But I honestly only felt maybe 3 or 4. So much, even ideas that shifted from heavy moments to soft moments didn't feel like entering a new section to me. There's so much carryover going on between these ideas, and it's that fluidity, the interconnectedness of everything that just astonishes me. One of our opening parts, within like the first 2 minutes or so, we were constantly fluctuating between the gritty, dirty electric guitar and clean acoustic guitars. Every 4 bars, we'd jump back and forth between them, but it didn't feel out of place. It wasn't jarring to move there. It felt very natural. It was an extension of the musical ideas, a sonic shift for sure, but not a musical one. And there's just such a strong cohesion about the music on the paper. And I think that's the important part here, why I really want to bring this up. When you get rid of all the guitar tones and the different vocal styles, and you look at just the notes on sheet music, I think that this is a gorgeous song that explores quite a few different ideas, but consistently finds connectiveness between the moment to moment concepts, the riff changes, and even several callbacks to original ideas. There is a lot of stuff going on in here. There's a lot of techniques and compositional elements going on in this track. Each section seems to introduce a new type of of performative playing. Completely new guitar technique. Maybe we were going on simple riffs, and then we entered to these beautiful linear melodic counterpoint, and then we had fast 16th note picking. We actually saw that twice, once with a clean guitar that kind of gave it a Spanish guitar vibe, especially with the chords they were going with, and once later that went more towards the black metal wall of attack kind of vibe. One technique utilized 2 different ways. Anyways, though, it's just a series of like all sorts of different ideas, and it just feels so singular in purpose and execution. And I think a lot of it comes down to the music. When you transpose this to sheet music, and you get rid of all the textual changes, because there are a lot of those. The guitars have many voices. Our vocalist has three different types of vocal styles. The bass has a couple of different feels to it sonically. Once you get rid of all that and you look at just the music, it is extremely cohesive, and that drives a lot of their ability to push into sonic disjointedness, where we are constantly changing between sounds, but it still feels connected because of the music that supports all of it. It is just masterful. And to me, that's the thing that really held me from start to finish, was what are they going to do next? And more importantly, how are they going to get there? Their transitions are on point consistently. It's just everything melds together and feels consistent. And part of that is going to be the callbacks. There are several moments in here where I'm like, oh, they're doing this thing they did before in a different way. There was one section in the middle that called back to the odd rhythmic idea that we had in the beginning, where we had the first 4 bars being downbeats attacks, and then the next 4 bars, there were 2 versions of it. There's one that kind of played around with offbeat accents, and one that went into eighth note accents. I don't know, it's kind of bonkers, and they were really driving forward intensity in it before returning back to the heavy downbeat attacks. That idea came back up later on with a very different sound. I think instead of having the longer held out notes, it was played with shorter staccato notes, but it was the same rhythm with a different vocal line on top of it. So I think it might even had it. Oh, yeah, the vocal line actually went along with it this time. Rather than doing its own rhythm, it was in the rhythm of the guitars. So like, just a really great way to recontextualize an idea we've already seen. We also saw this later. I had already brought this up. We have that Spanish guitar bit in like our third clean guitar section. A right pan guitar, just playing these 16th notes on a single note, and then moving up to the next note, coming down to another note. And we actually saw this same chord progression show up in our final minute of the track, give or take. Well, I think our final minute was the atmospheric stuff. So the minute before that, the final minute of instrumental stuff. Yeah, so the the fast 16th note picking came back with our distorted guitars with full chords rather than a single note, and it creates this wall of sound, black metal kind of texture, kind of post-rocky, I suppose you could also go in that angle. But it's really cool that not a few moments prior to that, I think it was a few moments prior, we introduced the Spanish guitar chords that we had from that acoustic section into our electric guitar moment. And it was just like a double callback. We called back to the chords of that section, then we called back to the texture of the section. And of course, both times were recontextualized because they were with brand new vocal sections and they were distorted instead of clean. And just like little moments like that were going off all over the place. And those were just 2 of the ones I can remember. I'm pretty sure I picked up on a third one, and there's probably a bunch I didn't pick up on. Their cohesion in their composition process is just so good. Everything they did in this song was interconnected, and it just made it feel like a work of art, more so than a series of ideas that follow a cookie cutter pattern. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with writing a verse riff and writing a chorus riff and doing your verse, chorus, making a new riff for the bridge, and then finishing the track out with maybe another verse and chorus. There's nothing wrong with that if that's exactly what you want to make. But I am going to break that up into ideas. We have verse, we have chorus, we have bridge, and now I'm seeing it as building blocks. So this feels more like classical music, where the song is a full idea composed of a lot of little ideas that can get rearranged and overlapped and just reused and reinterpreted. And it is a fluid, linear song. It feels more cohesive, less constructed, I suppose. I don't know if I hope that works. I don't know a better way to word that, but I don't think that 100% fits the way I'm thinking about it. But yeah, I'm blown away. I really am. I will be checking out more Hypnos after this. Actually, I'm curious. This came out in 2012, and their latest album is 2019. Holy cow. This was their second album. Dude, they took, wow, 07, 2012, 2016. So 5-year gap, 4-year gap. After 2016, we got a 2018 and a 2019. Like they've been on fire. Uh so yeah, aside from musical structure and stuff like that, I really enjoy the variety that's on display here. I kind of touched on it already, but there's a lot of guitar tones. There's a lot of guitar styles. There's a lot of textures. There's a few bass tones. There's 2 or 3 vocal styles. I know there's a harsh high, like a fry scream. There's our clean. We had harmonized cleans. And I think there was a growl or a low fry at one time, but I don't think it came up often. I'm kind of getting a vague idea of it, but I couldn't pinpoint exactly when I heard it. So that one might not exist. I might be misremembering that. Um, but there's just so many sounds, and they don't have rules about when they can be combined together. It's not like we're in our heavy section, so you'll never hear a clean guitar, and then we're in our beautiful acoustic section, so you're not going to hear anything gritty anymore. Everything just kind of bleeds together. They're not individual tools for individual aspects. Just like the music, everything is designed to have flow and to interweave into each other. So we have a lot of variety, but it's not segregated variety. It's intermingled. We hear these variety of sounds and textures with all sorts of different combinations of other sounds and textures because nothing is ever relegated to a specific atmosphere. I just love that playfulness. On top of that, we also have some electronica elements coming in here. We actually started off the track with a sound. It was like this atmospheric, it was just like a single pitch with a tone, and it kind of faded in our song. There was something in the middle where we had like this synthy kind of brass tone going on in the background. It was just very bright and kind of fuzzy. And then I think we had some atmospheric electronica stuff there at the end. So, it doesn't really add much musically to the song. Every time it comes in, it is more of an atmospheric kind of concept, but it's just more textures to play around with. I hope to hear more of that on future tracks. And the last thing I want to touch on real quick is just the variety of ideas. We've kind of already talked about the guitar, how there's a few different styles of guitar work in there. But the drumming specifically, I didn't really get to touch on this, and I probably should have, but there's some really cool drumming ideas in here. We don't really play around too much with advanced metric ideas. We don't have polyrhythm, we don't have polymeter, but we do have playfulness of rhythmic structure. Sometimes we'll line up the drum's rhythms with what the guitars are doing, especially in the more rhythmic guitar lines. And so we get these really, really static, rigid drumming styles that aim to support the rhythms that are already in the song, while keeping it in line with the pulse of the track as well. But there's other times where the drums really get to show off some of their fun side, really getting to look at odd accents and interesting rhythmic phrasings. We see this often in the moments when we kind of take the song down a little bit. The couple of times that it was purely acoustic, we could hear some of this really melodic drumming coming in. And there's just a really beautiful contrast to the heavy-handed, metal drumming that we get in many of the other aspects of the track. But then there's also that really fun, I don't even know what it was. What was it? An eighth and 2/16 notes. That da 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 da. Just that really odd disjointed rhythm that we got right there in the middle of the song for a couple of bars that just, to me, kind of separates the beginning and end of the track. And it's just like, it doesn't fit with the pulse of the track. It's really odd. It was difficult for me to figure that out within the 4/4 because it's not really pulsing on the 4 beats that you would expect. But it was just such an unorthodox rhythmic style that just shines because the drums consistently play within more groovy ideas. They're either laying exactly in the beat and sitting in the pocket, or they're grooving with some syncopation with what the guitars are doing. But this was just completely bonkers pushing against that. So once again, we have mostly harmonious styles of drumming, rhythmically at least, and then we have this one pocket of more of a chaotic drumming style. And it's just this overall variety all throughout the track. It is so good. So I think that's it. I think I touched on everything I wanted to talk to. There is a lot of stuff in here I probably missed, but it is an incredibly dense linear track. So, as usual, with pretty much everything this week, we're looking at these 10, 15-minute songs that don't have repeated sections to them. It's a lot of music to take in and remember and be able to talk about. So, I hit all the highlights, though. This is so good. Let's hit some lyrics real quick. All right. This place is full of memories, a movement to the scars. Nothing means anything anymore. Tell the name of time, call it space, space, place, a place of ashes full of eyes. Of eyes, from there I will be born. From there I will be born again and again and again. What? I'm even trying to figure out like a rhythmic pattern to all this. Like, I want to go back and listen to this song with the lyrics because it is so difficult to find a pulse to this. It feels free time, meterless poetry. This place is full of memories of movement to the scars. Nothing means anything. A place full of ashes. From there I'll be born again. So we have somebody who is experiencing pain and reliving it. Their mind is a place full of memories. Nothing means anything anymore, so I mean that could be taken in a couple different ways. But this place is full of memories. It's also full of ashes and eyes. He feels like he's being watched here, and he gets reborn consistently. Please find a way, 'cause all is black. Is this home? Can you wake up? You wake up and you remember you were dreaming. You remember you were dreaming. You were dreaming. You were dreaming. You were dreaming. You were awfully dreaming. Awfully dreaming. Oh, this is in quotations. This was the spoken part. I wonder if it's a sample. I'm trying to remember back if the vocal sounded the same, had the same timbre and color to it, or not. Anyways, I'm pretty sure this was spoken word, regardless. This place is full of memory. Oh, that's the chorus. We started the track with the chorus. Interesting. No more clarity in his sad eye. His brain is motionless now. Sparse his memory, that as the day born to disappear. Now you know that I've been there and nothing can change. We have a bit in French, it looks like. It also has quotations around it. Translates to, he looked at me for a moment in silence. His eyes were full of tears. He turned away and he disappeared. He left. I regained calm. Which kind of lines back up. No more clarity in his sad eyes, so he's tearing up. His brain is motionless, and that day he was born to disappear. Lines back up, or kind of lines up with eyes full of tears, turned away and disappeared. It's interesting to see the parallelism between the sung words and the sampled words, I suppose, the spoken word. Oh, interestingly, the "No More Clarity" in his sad eye stanza comes back immediately after the French section. Oh, then we get a very long French section, also in quotations again. And I too, this is a translation, and I too felt ready to relieve it all, as if this greater anger had purged me of evil, emptied of hope. In front of this night full of signs and stars, I was opening up for the first time to the tender indifference of the world. I felt that I had been happy and that I still was at that moment, and at the edge of the night, sirens wailed. They announced departures for a world which is now forever indifferent to me. So it speaks about somebody who rid themselves of the pain of this world by becoming indifferent to it and losing all hope. And in doing so, they found that the world was also indifferent to them. It says, "Tell me, you who stayed down there, am I leaving? Tell me, how is it down there? Do you see me?" There is another French quote. There's a few of these in here. This is interesting. This one translates into, oh, it's the same thing. At the end of the night, edge of the night, departures for the world, which is forever indifferent to me. Okay, so it repeats that. We come back to the vocalist. "In the sky there is an opened eye, laid, he is ready to die. Please, please don't go by, 'cause there's no horse to ride. You're walking on a feed of leaves, they are black and dry. They are a mother and a child. Please release your dead now." I really wish this was beginning to make some sort of sense to me. It seems to be a series of ideas and feelings and just pockets of emotion that somebody is feeling as they process a grief of some sort. There is a feeling of great loss in a lot of these and a lack of understanding of how to deal with it, but seeing pockets of the grief process. This next quote says, "So that everything is consummated, so that I feel less alone, I just had to wish, let there be many spectators the day of my execution, and they greet me with cries of hate." Our final two sung stanzas: "I can feel its crackling, the skin of earth is fading, waiting for the sun, they swallow the light. Run, waiting, tomorrow waiting, come on and run, waiting for tomorrow, please don't go by. They name it as if each one was the last, as if each one were the only, as if each one was a part of me." So yeah, there's that last French quote leads into the idea of being executed publicly, about a personal death, and we lead back into our lyrics, which come along into something similar to that. There's definitely a loss of oneself. We finish with our final French sample. "If I was a man, no doubt I will do the things you tell me, but the poor beasts only know how to lie on the ground and die." Yeah, much like how most of this song to me is an ever evolving state of musical being. Like I mentioned, I don't really feel sections to it. It is just something that is continuously evolving in a path that feels extremely natural and interconnected in a way that almost feels like the end is still a part of the beginning and not a separate aspect called the outro. Most of these lyrics don't feel isolated in a way that they would be interpreted stanza by stanza like I typically go through this. It is a series of interconnected emotions that seem to be pointing towards a larger theme that I just can't see, unfortunately. But nonetheless, there's a lot of parallelism between the samples chosen. I think they're samples, the spoken word aspects, and the lyrics themselves. It's interesting to see something like that because it creates redundancy. Most bands would not opt to reinterpret something they've already said. Or I should say, most lyricists wouldn't. If you're going to say something, just say it. It doesn't need to be said twice in slightly different ways, but it does drive home the concepts. The parallelism, if nothing else, makes the selected lines and the lyrics that are put after them and sometimes before them, it gives them extra strength. I don't know that it would always work. I don't know that simply telling something twice is always going to be effective, but at least here it really drives the sentiment home. Even if that sentiment, at best I can tell, is more of a general feeling than knowing exactly what Hypnos is trying to say here. Those are my thoughts on Acid Mist Tomorrow from Hypnos. This is where you guys come in and hit me up in the comments. Let me know if you enjoyed this or not, anything that stood out to you, anything you'd like to add to the conversation or correct me on. Above the comment section, you can head into the description box and find a link to Linktree. Has a dozen links in there, of which you can find ways to support the channel and the Discord community if you're interested in joining that, as well as a bunch of other stuff. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three. We have a special selection coming out today. Otherwise, I'll see you guys tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC. As usual, we're going to check out our final themed track and some creator requests. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.